And so my mind started to turn, as one would. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm good at this. Let me make something. And then it just was like notebook after notebook, like drawings and writing of just how do we change this community?
This is the Trailblazers show. I'm your host, Megan Kaptein, and today I am featuring a special guest, Richelle Trelenberg. Richelle is a motorcycle technician, and she's also the owner and operator of a mobile mechanic shop here in Vancouver. Richelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell me about your business, True Grit Moto.
So True Grit Moto is a mobile motorcycle shop. I started it in 2018 just as an idea. Just thinking, well, if a bike breaks down, how do you get it to the shop? Well, it'd be nice if you could just show up. So I tried to come up with an idea that made sense and also welcomed people that felt maybe a little uneasy going into a motorcycle shop. And there was True Grit Moto.
You originally started it was actually in a physical space, though. It didn't start off as a mobile shop, did it? Or
it didn't actually. So it started first and foremost in my backyard, which was the "There Goes the Neighborhood" slogan. Everybody was a little opposed to it at first, and then they were pretty happy because I was able to fix more than motorcycle, lawnmower, generators. And from there, I then had to pivot to a brick and mortar, which was a very large barn. And I was there for exactly a year to the day. And then from there, I had to pivot to the mobile shop that it is today. Right from the start is kind of the idea of what I wanted it to be, and that's what it is.
so the barn was more than just a motorcycle shop. It was actually like an event space. You had a specific vision in mind when you started that.
Yeah, I did. It was supposed to, well, I guess I didn't really have an idea for what I wanted. I always had a dream. I always had a dream that I wanted something that was desert, vintage, motivated, and inspired with cool architecture similar to a barn, like what you'd see, driving through fields. And then I wanted to incorporate people working on motorcycles with an event space. And I wanted it to be a very open concept. I don't know how I got so lucky to get that barn. It was a really good find. And so, yeah, we had a vintage store. We had motorcycles being worked on. We had a bar / coffee shop / event space. And it kind of just became the dream that I never thought that I would be able to do.
Sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk a bit more about your mobile business that you have currently. How does that work?
So the motorcycle business so far has been brick and mortar. Bike breaks down, you got to get it to the shop some way or somehow, and then you got to wait for parts or get the bike fixed. The idea behind being mobile was that it was more visible to yourself as a motorcycle rider. And you'd see me pull up, and you could be there while I was working on the bike. You could ask questions, and if you felt like you wanted to be involved in it, you could. And with the same token, it would be easier, more seamless, more cost-effective, and it would take away from kind of like the environmental footprint in a way, where I would be able to recycle items almost immediately. It would be less garbage, and we would be able to take up less space. And instead of having broken motorcycles sitting in a space or in a storage or in a motorcycle shop, just nobody looking at it, it would be right there with the owner who cares about the bike that much to be like, what's going on with my bike? It's sitting here. It just gives the visual and the love that every motorcycle rider has with openness.
So tell us about the actual format of your shop.
Okay, so the physical space of it is really cool. I got really lucky. It used to be like a postal van, and the owner that had it before me sold plants in it. It's got the big bug windows up at the front with the short front end, and it's about 10 feet, and up top it's got a sunroof, And on the driver's right-hand side, it's got like an open window that kind of comes out. And on the back, it's all white walls. And that's where all my tools are. And then in the middle, I cut a motorcycle bench that you can raise. I cut it into quarters so that way the motorcycle would just fit on it. And then if it's cold or if it's raining, I put the motorcycle inside on the stand, and then I will raise it into the sunroof and open the window so people can watch me working on the bike. And then the back door is open so you can see visually what's going in, and also it expels any chemicals or gas or exhaust that I have coming in there. And then I plug it in, and it's got LED lights, and I can play music, and it's just a shop on wheels. Yeah.
So cool.
Thank you.
Have you ever seen another shop like that?
No, I can't even when I began to think about True Grit Moto, I thought it was going to be truck and trailer. I don't even know how I came about this. Timing, I suppose, and luck, but I never thought it was going to be like that, nor have I ever seen it. You see, like, the tool trucks, but they still don't look like that. They're just full of tools and crammed, and yeah, somebody else had a dream to sell plants in it, and it worked amazing for what I wanted to do.
I mean, maybe you could sell a few plants on the side as well.
I do put a plant in it. I kept the sticker that said it's a jungle in here, just to honor the people that had it before, because I just thought that was so beautiful. So it is kind of cool that you see on the very back the logo, and then in green it says it's a jungle. And sometimes I'll put dracaenas and hanging plants in there, so that way I still stayed, a little like the original shop idea of keeping it kind of like plants and the rustic, but in a mobile shop. Yeah.
Certain plants are actually really good for detoxifying the environment too, so good to help take care of those chemicals.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah.
So because you're mobile, that means you could theoretically go all over the place. Like, so do you have aspirations to take your business elsewhere?
Yes, I do. I hope that I can go. The hope and dream is that we can open up a couple different shops down the line all the way to, say, Mexico. And when you are affiliated with True Grit as like a member, that you could stop at any one of these places, and it would be like a familiar space, and you could make sure that you knew that you were getting your bike worked on by somebody that you trusted back home. We are in the works, hopefully over the next few years, of launching some more locations where we are mobile and not just here in Canada.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that happening.
Me too.
So tell me about your motorcycle journey. How did you first get started in riding?
In riding, I remember the first time I rode just a little tiny 50cc dirt bike. My grandpa, I think it was his brother, and I'm pretty sure I almost ran over like a garden snake. And I'll never forget that, because I don't even remember how I did it or what I was doing, but I was doing it. And then of course, riding's expensive, so we didn't really get into that. I didn't think it was feasible or doable. So I never really ventured towards motorcycling, but I always, in the back of my mind, maybe thought about it, and I was kind of surrounded by it. My father had done motorcycling and had been building a bike, and then my godfather built bikes. It's always been in my life. And then, a little later on, actually, I had a partner that bought me my first little dirt bike. It was like a 110cc little pit bike. And I couldn't afford it at the time, and she got it for me. I think it was like $400, which is so wild to think. And I rode that thing all the time. I loved it, and I worked on it, and I crashed it, and I worked on it, and I made it part of workshops. I had that little bike for a really long time, and from there it was Suzuki GS750. Built the carbs in that. It kept leaking. I learned so much on those bikes, but that bike in particular was so heavy that every other bike after that, I feel, has been a dream. I actually pulled my muscle through my ribs because I was trying to just push that bike around. It was so heavy. So yeah, I got into street riding after that little pit bike, and found, kind of like a whole new love for riding, but not so much about riding specifically. I think it was the people that really made me feel like familiar in a way that I didn't feel comfortable anywhere else in the world, but suddenly I had found my people, and that was really cool. So that was kind of the beginning.
It's beautiful. I love hearing people say that about the motorcycle community.
Yeah.
In terms of your professional life as a motorcycle technician, when and how did that come about?
I was working for Amazon, and I'll never forget my first week there, hating that job so much because they treated people so poorly. It was really hard to be involved in it, and I was awful. And that probably was like my 30 to 40th job in my life because I never really figured out where I wanted to be. Um, and I thought to myself, I can't do this forever. And I was just like sitting there and I thought, I think I need to change up my life a little bit. I think I'm going to go and BCIT, do a motorcycle mechanic course. I'm going to do foundation level 1. I'm just going to wing it and see how it goes. I want to work on my little pit bike. I want to know more. And luckily, something had happened at Amazon, and so they had put me in a position where I was able to do schooling during the day and work in the evening. So I did foundation level 1. The instructor was a female, which made it all the better.
Marcy, right?
Yep, Marcy, she was amazing. She really understood me, and it's not like I got special treatment. She just saw that I was really trying. And so I did the program, and from there, I think I went to go and I'd gotten my GS 750, and I really wanted to work on it, and I was trying to get help, and I was trying to go to shops, and it was horrible. Like, there was no one spot that was like, come on in. We got you. It was like, who are you? Why are you here? How much money do you have? Do you have time? Oh, cafe racer, I don't want to work on that. It was just negativity every direction I went. And so my mind started to turn, as one would. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm good at this. Let me make something. And then it just was like notebook after notebook, like drawings and writing of just how do we change this community? And not the people in it, but the people surrounding it that are trying to make sure that these people can continue to ride. Let's stop pushing each other around. Let's try and make it easier the way it should be. And man, it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy because I feel like I've had my back up against the wall for so long, and every time I try and I always say it's like being in a group of people and you bring somebody new in, and everybody just kind of like keeps that closed circle, and that new person's hanging out being like, am I okay here? And there's got to be that one person that goes, hey everybody, somebody is looking to come in, let's open up the circle. And then suddenly that person feels welcome, and now they're part of it. And that's what True Grit has been since the beginning, except it's really hard to be that person to be like, hey, everyone, let's stop this and let's open it up. And a lot of people don't like change. So here we are, and it's changing.
It is, and you're definitely a trailblazer in that sense. I think you're doing a great job at that, and you're my mechanic, so you do the work on my bike, and you've always made me feel really comfortable about talking about my bike and being honest about what I know or don't know about my bike. And I think just your unpretentious attitude about what you do makes me feel really comfortable, and I think that's why so many people love working with you.
Thank you.
I know that you're a big advocate for the motorcycle community as a whole, not just, in terms of the mechanical side of things, but you are really all about making the motorcycle community more inviting and for all kinds of people. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to bring you onto the show, because I love that you're doing that, and I think you're doing that so successfully.
Thank you. It means a lot.
You also facilitate workshops, so you teach people, specifically women, right, about their bikes, and like you teach them how to do some kind of basic mechanical work. Is that still something you're up to these days?
So the workshops, yes. I offer workshops on motorcycles and then workshops with dirt biking. The motorcycle workshops everybody is invited. Women are mostly the ones that attend, but we do still have anybody's welcome. And that one is, I kind of reach out to the community and ask what they're interested in hearing about, and it covers specific things just to keep it more direct, like how to diagnose a no start, how to do an oil change. One time I did come in and do your own oil change. And then we did that. We would do an oil change on each and every single person's bike, and they would do it themselves, and we provide the tools. So, the workshops have been a really cool way for me to get to know the community and for the community to get to know their bike. And they've been very successful.
And you also facilitate little tours or...
So the dirt biking events I was doing, I'd like to get into it again, but it's easier to learn in dirt a little bit because it's not as scary or daunting. And a lot of people don't even think, oh, I'm going to go dirt biking or I can dirt bike, because you can't just go buy a bike and you can't just go rent a bike. It's not out there.
Yeah.
There's a couple places, but they're not cheap. So I was doing a workshop where, out in Squamish, you'd show up at 10 a.m. We'd leave around 4 p.m. I'd provide food, snacks, drinks, and I'd teach you how to ride a bike. Clutch play, how to walk with it, how to get familiar with your feet on the ground. And then we'd escalate from there up to doing jumps or track or trail. And some people were exhausted by the end of it, but nobody ever was like, this is terrible. It was like, I really loved this. And it really gets you away from thinking about your day-to-day, because you have to be so focused on what's going on with that bike. And then the smells trigger you, and the sight lines, like, you've got dirt and people flying and doing what they love. The dirt biking sessions are probably one of my most favorite workshops.
So do you have a whole fleet of bikes then now?
I actually had to sell my bikes to cover some expenses. So I don't have any motorcycles at the moment for dirt biking, but hopefully down the line. I'm hoping that I don't have to provide those myself. I'd like to support somebody that's a local, another smaller business that already has that, because that's their thing. So that's kind of what I'm looking for at the moment. But if I can't find it, then I'll see if I can find myself a fleet of bikes, or see if maybe we can get sponsored for that. That would be ideal.
Exciting.
Yeah. It's not cheap when those things, break down.
And I suppose when you're teaching beginners too, there are inevitably crashes and...
Yeah, I've been pretty good. I don't know if it's because I'm a good teacher or that's a good student, or we just vibe very well, but I've only ever had 2 incidences, and they weren't too bad.
You've only had 2 crashes?
Only 2. That's it. That people have told me about, or that I've seen, and it was a couple. And they were just driving a little bit wilder than,
A little competition perhaps?
Yeah, they were a little competitive, and the one flew right over the embankment, and one just fell over. That was an interesting time. But
good thing I happen to know a good mechanic.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, I was able to fix them.
I bet you were. Yeah, I bet you were. Oh, very cool. Well, I'm really excited to see what happens with your business, and you've got so many different talents, from teaching to obviously fixing up the bikes. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing where you go with things.
Cool. Thank you.
Last question I like to ask my guests is do you have any advice for women who are interested in getting started in this industry?
Okay. Yes, this is it's an important one, because it's scary to get out there. If you don't know anybody, biking is intimidating. So my advice is always, if you meet somebody, or you find yourself in a space where you're a little more comfortable, it's good to just like focus on one person or one thing at a time and get kind of familiarized and used to it, than be so concerned about what everything has got to offer, because there's just too much. There's too much to take in. Find your one little comfort and stick with it until you can blossom with it. Even if it's just like going to take a look at a dirt bike or a motorcycle at the shop, but buy a shirt, buy a helmet, meet somebody there, just try one small thing and expand from there, because that's how we all started. That's how I started. And then, you know, the rest is kind of history. It'll flow, and you will meet people that jive with you in the way that you want to be in the industry. And that's pretty much it.
That's great, Richelle. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for being on the show today.
It's been great.
It has been great. I really enjoyed talking to you, and it's always a pleasure to see you. And also because I know that my motorcycle is always going to be happier every time you work on it. So
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, it was great chatting with you, and look forward to riding with you this season.
Me too.